Okay, so imagine this, right? You're driving down this totally deserted road, sun setting, and there's somebody hurt on the side of the road.
Okay.
Do you stop? Like, what goes through your head in that moment? It's a situation that really makes you think, about what you'd actually do.
Absolutely. Yeah. It really kind of forces you to confront your assumptions, right? Like about yourself, your capacity for empathy and for actually doing something.
And that's what we're going to be diving into today.
Exactly.
The parable of the Good Samaritan. We'll be using the Good Samaritan, love knows no boundaries, to kind of unpack it all.
Right.
Because this isn't just, some old story.
Yeah.
It really touches on something very, very human.
Absolutely.
So to really, get this parable, I think we got to go back to the actual setting, this road between Jerusalem and Jericho. Our source makes it sound pretty dangerous.
Oh, yeah. It was definitely not just a physical journey.
Right.
It was filled with danger. Like bandits,
Yeah.
That sense of isolation.
Yeah.
The source actually describes it as desolate, where travelers were super vulnerable.
All right.
And that detail really sets the scene for the whole conflict at the heart of the story.
And then we meet the victim, right? This traveler who's attacked, brutally attacked, left for dead.
Right.
It's a really stark image, emphasizing just how much cruelty he's facing.
Totally. And the source doesn't shy away from how brutal that attack was.
Right.
It really emphasizes his helplessness.
Yeah.
Like he's stripped of everything.
Yeah.
His possessions, his dignity. He's completely reliant on the compassion of, whoever might come along.
And then along comes the priest.
Right.
Someone you would think, would be like the definition of compassion.
Yeah.
But he just walks by.
He does.
This must have been shocking, right? To the people hearing this story for the first time.
Oh, absolutely. It's this deliberate subversion of expectations. Here you have this religious leader, someone who's supposed to embody God's love.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't act.
Wow.
And the source mentions that scholars have offered a few different interpretations.
Right.
Some suggest that the priest might have been afraid of ritual impurity.
Well,
So touching the wounded man could prevented him from doing his duties at the temple.
So it's like fear of breaking a religious rule overrides his sense of compassion.
Potentially, yeah.
That's a fascinating dilemma.
It is.
But then it happens again, right?
Oh.
This time with a Levite, another religious figure, and he avoids the injured man too.
Yeah, he does.
It keeps happening.
Right, and that repetition, it really drives home the point.
Yeah.
Two figures of religious authority,
Right.
both failing to live up to what's expected of them.
Yeah.
And it makes you question, right? Where does real compassion actually come from?
Which leads us to the Samaritan. Now, this is where the story, takes a completely unexpected turn.
Totally.
You got to remember, right? Back then, there was deep animosity between Jews and Samaritans.
Oh, yeah. Huge.
So for Jesus to make a Samaritan the hero of his story.
Well, can you imagine how provocative that would have been?
Oh, yeah.
To his audience?
Yeah.
It's like he's challenging their whole idea of who deserves compassion.
Right.
Who's even worthy of being called, a neighbor.
And what's amazing is the Samaritan doesn't just stop to help. He goes above and beyond.
Oh, he does, and the source really highlights that,
Yeah.
the extent of his actions.
Right.
He uses his own oil and wine
Yeah.
to clean the wounds, bandages them,
Yeah.
and then personally takes the guy to an inn.
Wow.
It's not just a quick moment of charity. This is
Right.
sustained care, personal care.
And he pays for his lodging.
He does.
He even tells the innkeeper, I'll cover any extra expenses.
Yeah,
This is true selflessness,
totally.
especially considering the social context,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, absolutely.
He's risking his own safety, his own resources to help someone from a group that, basically despises him.
Yeah, it really makes you think about, what does it actually mean to be a neighbor?
Yeah.
Who are we willing to show compassion to?
Exactly.
That's the question. It really goes deeper than just a simple story,
Yeah.
By making the Samaritan the hero.
Right.
Jesus isn't just saying, be nice.
Right.
He's really breaking down those prejudices,
Yeah.
The ones we all have.
Yeah.
Challenging us to rethink this whole idea of who is our neighbor.
Yeah. It's like he's saying, look beyond the labels, look beyond the social divisions.
Exactly.
And see the actual human being who needs help.
Yeah.
And that's,
Yeah, that's radical.
it's radical even today.
Oh, absolutely. And the source the Good Samaritan, love knows no boundaries,
Yeah.
really stresses that this isn't about like following rules
Right.
or, doing religious rituals.
Right.
It's about this inner transformation,
Yeah.
like a shift in our hearts
Yeah.
that leads to, genuine action.
So it's not just what we do, but why we do it.
Exactly.
The Samaritan isn't helping because he feels obligated
Right.
or because of social pressure or anything like that.
Yeah.
He's driven by like a true sense of compassion.
Exactly. And that's where the challenge of the parable
Yeah.
gets really personal, It's
Yeah.
that call to go and do likewise.
But what does that even look like in our
Right.
everyday lives?
Yeah,
I
because
mean, I don't know about you, but I'm not really running into people beaten up on the side of the road that often.
yeah, not every day.
Yeah. So how do we,
Right. How do we apply this
yeah.
radical compassion to the things we do face?
Insane.
That's the question. And
Yeah.
the source,
Yeah.
it actually gives some really insightful examples
Oh.
of how this parable translates,
Okay.
to modern life. It talks about how showing compassion
Mhm.
can be as simple as, just really listening to someone who's struggling
Right.
or standing up for someone who's
Yeah.
being mistreated.
So it's those small acts of kindness.
Yeah.
But also about like having the courage to speak out
Mm,
when we see injustice.
absolutely. And recognizing that our responsibility to our neighbor
Yeah.
goes way beyond just, our immediate circle.
It's like expanding that definition of neighbor
Exactly.
to include people who are different from us.
Yeah.
People we maybe wouldn't normally even interact with.
Totally.
So think about the people you see every day, right?
Mhm.
The cashier at the grocery store,
Yeah.
the person asking for money on the street,
Hmm.
a coworker you don't really know that well.
Yeah.
What would it look like to see them through the lens of the Good Samaritan?
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing the inherent worth
Mm.
and dignity of every single person, regardless of, their situation or their social standing.
And it's about choosing compassion over indifference,
Yes.
action over apathy.
And it's in those choices, those
Yeah.
seemingly small acts of kindness
Yeah.
that we really embody, the spirit of the Good Samaritan.
It-
We might not always see the immediate impact of what we do,
right.
but those actions, they have the power to ripple outward,
Mm-hmm.
to create a more compassionate world,
Yeah.
one interaction at a time.
It's like that saying, right? Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a hard battle.
Mm-hmm.
This parable reminds us that we all have those battles. Those moments where we need someone to be the Good Samaritan for us.
And the beautiful thing is
Yeah.
by choosing to embody that compassion,
Yeah.
we not only help others, we
Uh,
also change ourselves.
Yeah.
It opens our hearts, it expands our understanding, and it
Yeah.
connects us more deeply to that shared humanity.
Mm-hmm. So as we kind of keep digging into this,
Mm.
this idea of going and doing likewise,
Yeah.
there's an example from the source that I thought was really interesting.
Okay.
It talks about responding to online hate speech,
Oh, yeah.
which is something, unfortunately, we see way too much these days.
All the time, yeah. And that's a great example
Yeah.
because it really makes us think about how this parable
Mhm.
applies in the digital age,
Right, because we might not be physically present,
Yeah,
but what we say and do online, it has real-world impact.
absolutely.
So instead of just scrolling by,
Right.
or even worse, adding to it,
Yeah.
what would it look like to actually be a good Samaritan in that situation?
That's the question.
And the source talks about
Mm-hmm.
engaging with empathy,
Mm-hmm.
challenging the hateful stuff,
Yeah.
standing up for the person being targeted.
It's about realizing that our neighbors
Yeah.
aren't just the people physically around us,
Right.
but also the people we connect with online.
And just like the Samaritan
Yeah.
risked his own safety to help,
Mm-hmm.
we might have to risk, discomfort
Yeah,
or even social backlash to speak up.
totally. It's choosing compassion over convenience,
Yeah.
even when it's hard.
Yeah.
And that's a powerful message,
It is.
especially in a world where it's so easy to just get overwhelmed,
Yeah.
by all the negativity and all the despair.
This parable reminds us
Mm.
that even when things are really tough,
Yeah.
even when we see so much suffering,
Yeah.
we always have the power to choose love,
We do.
to choose action,
Mm-hmm.
to choose to be a force for good.
And that choice, that commitment to going and doing likewise,
Yeah,
it can really make all the difference.
it can. Really makes you think, about those times when we have a chance to like actually make a difference.
Yeah.
Online, in person, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real call to action for all of us, I think.
And the source, it makes this interesting point about that call to action.
Okay.
It says, go and do likewise.
Right.
That's not about like one grand gesture, you know?
Yeah.
It's about developing a whole mindset,
Yeah.
a way of being in the world where compassion just becomes like second nature.
So it's not about checking something off a list.
Right.
It's about making these values part of,
Yeah.
part of who we are.
Exactly. It's like a muscle.
Okay.
You got to exercise it.
Yeah.
The more we practice empathy and kindness, the more it becomes just, part of us.
This reminds me of a time when I was going through a rough patch.
Yeah.
New city, no job. I felt totally lost.
Oh, wow.
And it was a neighbor, barely knew me,
Yeah.
but they really stepped up,
That's great.
offered support, listened to me, really helped me through it.
That's a perfect example of, the parable in action. It wasn't like this big dramatic rescue or anything,
Right.
just, human kindness.
Yeah. And it made a huge difference. And it made me realize, like, how powerful those small things can be.
Mm-hmm.
You never know when you're going to be the one who needs a Good Samaritan,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And wouldn't we all want someone to be there for us?
Absolutely. And the source,
Yeah.
it really stresses that interconnectedness,
Yeah.
We're all vulnerable at some point.
Right.
We all need compassion.
Mm.
And this parable, it reminds us that by giving kindness, we're not just helping others.
Right.
We're creating a world where we're more likely to receive it when we need it too.
It's like a beautiful cycle, isn't it?
It is.
So as we wrap up our deep dive on the Good Samaritan, I think the takeaway is pretty clear.
Yeah.
This isn't just a nice story, right? It's a challenge to really look at our own biases.
Yeah.
To make an effort to be compassionate
Mm-hmm.
and to see that shared humanity with everyone.
Yeah, no matter
who they are, what their background is, anything.
It's a call to action for sure.
It's a call to become the kind of people who, like the Samaritan, see someone in need and just like respond with love, with courage, with genuine care for others.
Absolutely.
So next time you come across someone who needs help, remember the Good Samaritan. Remember that compassion is a choice.
It is.
And that even the smallest acts of kindness can make a real difference in the world.
They can.
One interaction at a time.